So this is Algebra 2. We're working on our practice test 15A, and this is number 7. We're supposed to find the inverse of this equation, and then we also want the domain and the range of each. So since I already have this one, does anybody know the domain and range of this? This thing's a parabola, by the way. Can anyone figure out what the domain and range of that might be? So domain is the x values that you can plug in. So basically domains are always going to be all real numbers unless there's maybe a square root and you have a restriction because you can't have a negative under a square root, or if there's a fraction and you don't want a 0 in the denominator. So this thing's a parabola. Can you guys do you recognize that as being a parabola or no?
Because it's squared?
Yes. It's a parabola. So what would the domain of a parabola be? And we can draw a little tiny, I'll draw a little tiny parabola right here. There's one. It's an upward facing parabola. So the domain is
everything greater than -3.
That would be range, because that would be the up and down part, like how high it goes. The domain is how far to the left and right it goes. Now this parabola is it's going to spread out wider and wider, as it goes on into infinity. So this is actually going to go farther and farther toward negative infinity, and this will go toward positive infinity on the x-axis. So the range is all real numbers. I'm just going to write all reals. The range would be what you said. I think, let's see. It looks like it's shifted down by 3. So I think it's going to be, all the numbers that are greater than or equal to -3. So we're going to say x is greater than or equal to -3. So that is for the original function. Now let's get the equation of the inverse. We might need some scratch paper for that. So does anyone remember how to get the equation of an inverse of a function? Yeah, you swap. So instead of y equals 2x squared minus 3, I'm going to write x equals 2y squared minus 3. So that's the first step, is you swap. But then you have to get it solved for y again. So now I have to take this, I don't know if you can tell it's in blue, take this blue equation and solve it for y. So I could add 3 to both sides. And then I could divide both sides by 2. This is going to be a little ugly. And then I could, I'm going to have to square root both sides. So now it's got a fraction and a square root in it. It's not very pretty. And it's going to have like a plus or minus on it. Because when you do that, you get the plus or minus. So y is equal to plus or minus square root x plus 3 all over 2. So not very good looking function. Or we don't even know if it's a function. It's a relation, right? It actually wouldn't be a function because it wouldn't pass the vertical line test. So what are we asked to do? So we can just write this. This is the equation of our inverse. So it's y equals plus or minus square root x plus 3 over 2. That's the equation of the inverse. What is the domain, do you think, of this inverse? Remember, we can't have, so domain is the x values that you're allowed to plug in there. You can't have negatives under the square root without having a complex number. So what does x have to be? What's the restriction? Positives. It's certainly going to include all the positives.
So
I would go like this. I'd go x plus 3 over 2 has to be greater than or equal to 0, and I would solve it, because it's going to be more than just the positive. So I took the radicand, set it greater than or equal to 0, and I'm going to see exactly what number makes it turn into 0. Okay, so if I multiply both sides by 2, I'll have x plus 3 is greater than or equal to 0. And then if I subtract 3 from both sides.
You get x is greater than negative 3?
Yeah, so, and that makes sense, doesn't it? Because if x was exactly negative 3, I'd have a 0 in there. So x has to be greater than or equal to negative 3. So I think that's all we have to do for a domain. Let me check that. For that one. Yeah, x is greater than or equal to negative 3. Now you're going to find something amazing that's going to happen. Do you notice anything about the domain of this function and the range of that
Yeah,
function?
they're flipped.
Yeah. So, what about the range of this function?
So then I would just do, wait, would you?
Yeah, you can swap them. Now they told you that in, I don't know, in one of the little blue boxes, but I'm kind of guessing you guys might not have picked that up, yeah. So, when you do inverses, the domains and ranges are flipped, so I really didn't have to do all that hard thinking right there, but I did that so that you would understand what's going on. Is that all? Did we answer all the, I think we answered all the questions, so that's it.